Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I'm back after taking a several hour break from that massive hour-long tour through my manga collection. Um, and speaking of manga, once again, my manga reading for this past reading week has been the highlight of my reading week. On Saturday, I started with 6 volumes of My Hero Academia by Kohei Horikoshi. I started with volume 18 and continued with volumes 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So once again, My Hero Academia is a superhero-inspired manga series. It's about a young man named Izuku Midoriya who is obsessed with superheroes, but in a world in which 80% of the population has a superpower called a quirk, Izuku is quirkless. He has no superpowers. So his dream of becoming a professional hero is doomed. However, one day, a villain attacks one of Izuku's classmates, Katsuki Bakugo, and Izuku, though he has no superpowers, he has no chance against this villain. Izuku tries to rescue Katsuki. This act of bravery inspires the hero All Might, both Katsuki and Izuku's idol, and the greatest hero in Japan, to action. All Might has he's wearing out. His quirks weakening, and he can only be All Might for a very limited amount of time each day. But Izuku's act of bravery inspires All Might, and All Might rescues Katsuki and has a further conversation with Izuku in which All Might agrees to train Izuku, and at the end of it, of that training, All Might gifts Izuku his quirk, one for all. And this allows Izuku to become a hero. He enrolls in UA, the premier high school for aspiring superheroes in Japan, and he begins his training to become a pro hero. Joining him is Katsuki and a slew of other aspiring heroes. So I left off during a big arc called the internship arc. Izuku has been granted a provisional hero license, and he's interned alongside an older student hero named Lemillion with All Might's former sidekick, Sornadai. Sornadai has been trailing a Yakuza boss named Chisaki, who goes by the supervillain name Overhaul. Chisaki is planning on restoring the Yakuza to its rightful place in the underworld by creating a drug that eliminates quirks. Eventually, Chisaki gains enough evidence to move against Chisaki, and he gathers a number of allies, not only his own agency, but also a number of other heroes, including heroes who have employed as interns others of Izuku's classmates. And so they all raid the Yakuza's headquarters in a number of amazing battles. Um, the heroes fight their way to Chisaki. In the end, they manage to rescue um, a young girl who is the granddaughter of the former head of the gang, and is Chisaki's sort of adoptive niece. A number of heroes have been previously injured, um, and Izuku has an epic throwdown with Chisaki, aided by the little girl Eri. And let me show you. It's like it's an amazing arc. It sees. It introduces this wonderful character in Eri, the little girl. And of course, Lemillion, he is amazing. And there, it's wonderful. And it's brutal, just brutal, because this is the first arc in which a major character or named character dies, and another character is at least temporarily taken off the board. And it's just, it was a wonderful arc, amazing arc. The rest of this volume is taken up by sort of a breather arc, in which the students who failed to get their provisional license, namely Shoto and Katsuki, having to take sort of remedial classes to get it. It's so hilarious, just absolutely hilarious. And then from there, the narrative progresses to a cultural event held by the school. In Class 1A, the class in which Izuku and Katsuki are members of, decide to put on a concert. So a number of the students form the band. Those who have musical experience or can easily be taught. Others are dancers, and some sort of perform the effects. And a villain who's not all that famous, a gentle criminal, alongside his sidekick La Brava, decide to invade the school to sort of show them up, to sort of what am I trying to say? Trying to sound the alarm, to rattle them. And Izuku has sort of, alongside Lemillion, have taken Eri under their wing, and they're showing her around the school during this event. And Izuku promised to be there for Eri during the concert. However, he ends up getting into a fight with Gentle Criminal, and it is a really great fight, just absolutely wonderful fight. But first, Katsuki he's a troop. He's a troop. Even though he started off as a grade A jerk, horrible person, he gradually grows out of it, and his character development is just brilliantly well done. Alongside a lot of the characters, Izuku's character arc, Kirishima's, Shoto's, it's wonderful. And then there's that. There's Izuku confronting Gentle Criminal. Just, it's, oh, and this. Just, oh, I had a blast with that short arc. And then the series sort of, after the the festival ends, there's another brief arc in which the changes in Hero Society are after the retirement of All Might sort of settles. The new number one hero is Endeavor, Shoto's father, and the new number two is Hawks, who's interesting. He's an interesting character, and Hawks has approached Endeavor about partnering up. And during the negotiations, a number of monsters called Nomu attack, and Endeavor is seriously injured by in the battle, and it's just really well done. And let's see here. It's wonderful, and I really love. I mean, the cover is great, but I really love the back too. This is Hawks right here. It's just wonderful. And then after that is wrapped up, there's oh yeah, there's a training arc. Class 1A is put up against Class 1B in a series of team battles, and those fights are just, it's really interesting how it works out. So each class, it's basically 5 battles with 4 students on each side. Class 1A wins handily by a score of 3-1 to 1. And I really loved the conflict between like the fourth and fifth fight matches, because one has a Katsuki as involved, and it's really well done, and really highlights his character development. And the fifth one, which features Izuku, is really well done as well. Just, it was a blast. And so this, the 6 volumes that I read this week ends with the beginning of a new arc in which the League of Villains come into conflict with another villainous organization called the Meta Liberation Army. And I'll talk a bit more about that the next time I read My Hero Academia, which might be tomorrow, because I am really enjoying these volumes. They are just a blast. Anyway, so I'm loving this. Now, on Sunday, I read 6 volumes of Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic by Shinobu Ohtaka. Let me get them in order. Okay, I don't know why they did not get in order, but anyway. So, volume 9, volume 10, volume 11, volume 12, volume 13, and volume 14. So, My Hero Academia. No, I just talked about that. Magi the Labyrinth of Magic is a series inspired by the Thousand and One Nights. Aladdin is a young wizard, a magi, who travels the world looking for friends, and he finds one in Alibaba, who appears to be at first just a humble cart driver with dreams of conquering a dungeon, one of a number of mysterious buildings that have appeared throughout the world over the past decade plus. It's eventually revealed that Alibaba comes from royalty, and he and Aladdin conquer the dungeon in the city of Chishan. Um, they are joined by a young woman named Margiana, and together they go on adventures. Eventually, they meet the king of Sindria, Sinbad, and Sinbad tells them of Al-Taman, a villainous organization seeking to effectively destroy the world, and he enlists their aid in combating this evil organization. So, in these volumes, our heroes are staying in Sindria, training and adventuring. Eventually, they meet a young prince of Ko called Hikaru, who has come to learn from Sinbad, and in fact wishes to gain Sinbad's support in overthrowing the Ko Empire of, um, and so Sinbad takes this under advisement and introduces Hikaru to Aladdin, Alibaba, and Morgiana. The trio, or the quartet, go to a nearby island to conquer that dungeon, and they are confronted by members of Al-Taman and successfully conquer the dungeon, and it's an amazing arc. And then they sort of have a breather before they go their separate ways. Hikaru goes back to the Ko Empire. Morgiana decides to go to the Dark Continent to find out what happened to her people. Aladdin goes to Mugnostadt to learn how to better control his magic, and Alibaba goes to the Liam Empire to learn how to better fight. And it's amazing. And before they all fully split, they encounter a gang of pirates, and that's amazing. So it's wonderful. Um, I especially like some of the fights, but particularly the one in the dungeon was really great. The fight with the pirates is wonderful. So there's Hikaru. I really enjoyed these volumes. Although I'm not talking about them as much as I did My Hero Academia, but I love these just as much. Oh. So I cannot wait for more stuff. Um, yeah. It's really great. Oh, that was a great one there. Yeah. So it was. I had a great manga reading weekend, like I've had the past few. Oh yeah, that's an epic rescue right there. So just it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait to read more of Magi the Labyrinth of Magi either. So now we come to the disappointment, which was pretty much the rest of my reading week. I decided to read Shotguns and Stagecoaches by John Boessenecker. So this was one of my readings for June on the Range, booktube reading event in which participants read westerns in the month of November. The western is a genre of fiction, historical fiction, set in the American West, largely in the 19th century. Now, I don't have much in the way of westerns. I have two, Lonesome Dove and I'm blanking on its name, even though I bought on it earlier this month. But that was a weird western. Westerns don't really appeal to me. But I thought maybe I could read some nonfiction, read like a history of the West. And maybe I should have reread Dreams of El Dorado by H.W. Brands, but instead I decided to pick this up because it was more really what one thinks of as the Western. A lot of the so this is a series of short biographies of the men who worked for Wells Fargo in the late 19th and very early 20th century when Wells Fargo was not only a bank but also a transportation outfit. Sort of like, say, FedEx or UPS are today. And while there are some interesting stories in this book, it really didn't do anything for me. I found myself rather bored and uninterested. So, yeah. Well, that was disappointing. So, what's going to happen this week for reading wise? So, I think I'm going to continue reading manga over the course of the weekend. So, I'm thinking I'm probably going to continue on with My Hero Academia for Saturday. I don't know if I'm going to continue on with Magi the Labyrinth of Magic on Sunday because I only have about 6 volumes before I have to stop. Because I have up to volume 20 and then I'm missing 21 and 22. So basically, it's like whenever I read volumes 15 to 20, it's kind of with that in mind. Now, if Pals sends me an email saying they're 21 and 26 and 27 are available, I'll jump on them and I'll read Magi like pretty quickly. But I want to space that out because it could be quite a while. And even though I would love to do a reread of the series if it takes that while, but I don't know. But I'm also thinking of starting back up on Demon Slayer by Koyoharu Kotage. So this is a series about a young man named Tanjiro whose sister has been infected by a demon, and he trains to become a demon slayer to protect her. I read this volume sometime last year and quite enjoyed it, and I've since picked up a few volumes, and so looking forward to binging on that. And I'm also thinking of reading the 5 new volumes of The Seven Deadly Sins by Nakaba Suzuki that I picked up this past month. So The Seven Deadly Sins is a series inspired by the Arthurian legends. It's about a princess of the kingdom of Leones who goes in search of the 7 deadly sins after the Holy Knights, an order of superpowered knights, overthrows her father and have enacted a tyrannical regime. Elizabeth finds Melodius, the leader of the 7 deadly sins, and together they reform the order and begin to restore her father to his throne. I've really enjoyed the last few volumes that I read, and I cannot wait to get to more. Now, over the work week, and I don't know how long it will take me, but I'm going to, for my Reading America project this year, I'm going to do the Oxford Book of American Short Stories, edited by Joyce Carol Oates. So this is probably going to take me a while if I'm only going to read the book over the course of the work week. I might only be able to do a few, because it's 869 pages. So it might take me a while. So I don't know necessarily what else I'll be able to get to. I mean, I guess I could devote maybe a weekend here or there to something else, Historathon or more history-oriented books about war, even though, to be fair, most of my booktube about war reading for this month, so in case you don't know, booktube about war is a booktube event taking place in July in which participants read war-related literature. Initially, it was just going to be fiction, but it's since been expanded to include nonfiction, and I'm further expanding it to include manga because a lot of the manga I read does involve large conflicts. The final arcs of My Hero Academia will include such conflicts. Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic, I'm pretty sure a good chunk of those 6 volumes that I'm wanting to read involve war, and several volumes do. The 7 Deadly Sins is in a full-blown war for much of the series, one way or another. If I get to like Naruto, there's conflict, although not quite where I'm at. For that, when Eden Zero comes in and I read that, there'll be they're in the middle of a war arc there. So yeah, there's a lot of war in shonen manga. Anyway, so I know I promised I would do a July book haul, not a July book haul, July TBR, but that my tour of my manga collection wore me out. So I think I'm just going to do, and I pretty much already, because I don't know exactly how long this is going to take. So my July might be just this and manga. I don't know. So anyway, now before I sign off, I want to talk a bit about what I did today. So if you notice this bookcase over here, now has my manga collection on it. And I've moved the history books since these two bookcases are the beginnings of my history wall. And the history on that bookcase has since been moved over here, as well as to the top um, shelf on my headboard bookcase and the two wall shelves. So I decided to rearrange things in part because I really did not like how my manga looked where I had them. I mean, they were okay on this bookcase here and on the top shelf of my headboard bookcase, but the lower bookcase, the lower shelf, it was hard to get them out of. The volumes I had down there, it was difficult to pull them out without having to move my mattress. And I did not like the way they looked on the wall shelves because my brother, for some odd reason, decided to place spacers along the board, which, while it's okay for some things, when it's a series that you sort of want to look nice, it doesn't look nice. So over the past few months, I've been thinking of moving my manga over to the history wall, which would, of course, necessitate some changes. And I decided I was going to let it play out for a week. So come next Friday, if I'm not entirely happy with how things look, I'll change things back. Although I might also, if I do put the history back where they were, I'm going to take a hard look at a lot of those books, and decide whether or not I want to ultimately keep them or send them on their way. Because I do need to take a harder look at my history. And I guess they sort of skated by because there's still quite a bit of space on those shelves, or there was. Now it's in flux since wanting to move my manga there. But I did end up, as I finished putting the books on that bookcase, that my manga fills those two. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do about my book hauls, because I put my book hauls in an empty space where this upper bookcase does not quite completely cover this lower bookcase. So that space I use for my book hauls, but now it's being used to kind of contain overflow. And that overflow is going to be a bit more worrying as my July book hauls come in, since it's again going to be fairly heavily manga oriented. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do with that. Maybe I could take my writing and art books from my desk bookcase, move them out into the hall with the rest of the nonfiction, and then use this as my book haul shelves. Could be an option. Or I could also probably start to move some of the history off of the second bookcase over on this wall and start to move manga there as needed. I don't quite know what I want to do, but I've got a week to worry about it and figure it out. So any booktube, this video is going quite long as well, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. So thank you for indulging me in at least 2 very long videos, and I will see you next week. Maybe I'll try to get 5 videos in, but yeah, sometimes things don't quite go the way I hope. But anyway, booktube, until I see you next week, thank you, have a great rest of your evening, and I hope you have a great weekend, and stay safe.